I've been training in the gym for 12 years and here are 12 lessons I know now that I wish I knew sooner. Starting out with number 1, lift weights to build muscle, not to burn calories. When I started out, I used to have one of these fitness tracker watches. I used to wear even a chest strap and I would always count how many calories I burned in every single session. And for whatever reason, I set a rule for myself that I would not be allowed to leave the gym until I burned 700 calories. Little did I realize then is that the benefit of lifting weights, it's not to burn calories, it's to build muscle. And the ironic thing is, muscle is more metabolically active than fat, meaning the more muscle you have, the more calories you will burn while you're resting. But I always just took for granted that, okay, if I don't burn 700 calories in this workout, it's not a good workout. Until I realized that lifting weights burns more calories long term, cardio burns more calories short term. So now I do know better, and that's why lifting weights builds muscle, muscle burns more calories at rest. So focus on building muscle, not burning calories in your workout. Now this leads me on to nicely number 2, and that is count your calories sooner. So when I started out, when I was really into the fitness, I used to think that anything with protein in it was healthy. So I used to get this chocolate Muju protein drink. It was like a milkshake, and I also used to get chocolate protein peanuts, okay? Little did I realize, because I didn't count the calories, it said it had 20 grams of protein. It must be healthy, right? The Muju alone, it had like 750 calories and like, I don't know, 50 grams of sugar or something insane. And then the chocolate coated peanuts, they may have had 600 calories and 20 grams of protein, which is just absolutely insane. So when I was having the Muju and the chocolate milk, that's like 12 or 1300 calories, which is the size of 2 really, really decent meals. So then when I counted my calories, I realized, wow, okay, so when I have this full pack of peanuts, this is like basically 1/4 of the amount that I should be consuming on a daily basis. When I have all of this sugar, I'm actually surpassing my sugar levels for the day. And when I started counting calories, and that's when I realized that, okay, on the flip side, you mean that I can eat 300 grams of strawberries and it's only 100 calories. You mean that I can have all of this chicken fillet here, this lean source of protein, and it's only 250 calories. So it works both ways. But count your calories sooner. I started using MyFitnessPal. I've been tracking my calories now for about 7 or 8 years and I haven't looked back since. Now, going back to the gym, number 3 is focus on building your strength rather than testing your strength. So ego is the enemy, as we all know. And for me, when I first lifted 100 kilos, I'll never forget the day. I got a guy who was leaving the gym to spot me in the gym, and I was absolutely ecstatic when he didn't touch the bar at all. I lifted the 100 kilos for the first time. That was around the time then that I was about to go to America for the summer. And when I was going to America for the summer, my diet wasn't as good, my training wasn't as consistent. But I just set a rule for myself before I went that I must be able to lift 100 kilos, bench press for at least once before or when I return back home to Ireland in 3 months' time. So therefore then, any time that I went to the gym, I didn't focus on building my strength, building my bench press. I just focused on testing it. So basically, every time I go to the gym, I would test my 1 rep max in the bench press. But over time, then it's like, if you only do a couple of working reps or a couple of working sets per session, you're not going to build anything from there. You're not going to improve. And unfortunately, come the end of the 3 months, I wasn't able to bench 100 kilos because I was focusing on testing my strength and not building my strength. Now, I would not have done that had I done number 4, hire a coach sooner. So I used to be of the opinion that I could just watch YouTube videos, read bodybuilding.com, articles online, men's health articles, and just basically DIY it. But sometimes you don't know what you don't know. The first time I actually got a plan from a coach, I got better results in those 3 months from that plan than I did in the past 2 or 3 years of training. So while a lot of people watching this, you probably could do it on your own. It's like what a coach will do, a really good coach at least, they'll accelerate your results. And for me personally now, ever since I started investing in myself, I'd always much rather pay for something in money than in time, because you can always earn more money, you can always work harder, but you can never get your time back. So had I hired a coach sooner, I would have seen faster results. But again, hindsight's always a good thing. It's something I know now that I wish I knew sooner. Speaking of which, number 5, I'm sure a lot of you watching can relate, is that I used to think you could spot reduce body fat. So I remember seeing Cristiano Ronaldo take his top off after scoring the Champions League winning goal for Real Madrid in 2014, I think it was. And his abs, his six-pack abs, as you know, he's absolutely shredded. And I'm like, I want to look like Ronaldo. I want to have defined and a really chiseled core like him. So what did I do? I used to hold like 2 or 3 minute planks in my sitting room. I used to do crunches before bed because I thought that doing sit-ups, doing crunches, doing lots of core work will give me a six-pack. While it is true that will help strengthen your core muscles, okay, you cannot spot reduce body fat. It comes down to overall body fat reduction. That comes from being in a calorie deficit through your nutrition. So for me, I didn't realize that I could do 3-minute planks, I could do all the sit-ups and crunches, but if I still eating chocolate Muju milk, if I still having peanuts as chocolate coated peanuts, I'm not going to see my abs, I'm not going to lose body fat. And speaking of losing body fat, number 6 is something I only started learning recently, and that is the impact of walking. So I did my first ever photo shoot in 2020, and I was looking quite lean, I was looking quite strong. But then in 2021, I would say I built one of my leanest ever physiques. I was wondering why. I was like, what difference did I make? I was still lifting weights, I was still working out, I was still eating quite healthy. But the biggest change that I made was I focused on getting 10,000 steps a day. Now, there is nothing magic about doing 10k steps a day, but I just kind of thought that, okay, walking, that's not exercise. That's something that women do. That's people who cannot lift weights. That's what they do. But what I didn't realize is the benefit of walking is it's a super low impact way of burning body fat while maintaining your muscle mass, and it's not very taxing low on the body. So when I increased my step count to roughly 10,000 per day, some ways that it was go for a walk in the morning while drinking my coffee, so that's habit stacking, and go for a 5 or 10 minute walk after every single meal. I built my leanest ever physique, and that was, I would say, put it down to a lot of that, just walking more and moving more throughout the day. And by the way, if you like videos like this, make sure you subscribe to the channel so you do not miss out, because I post every single week. Number 7 then is sleeping more. Okay, so I used to think that I was like immaculate, that I didn't need to sleep and I could get away with 4 or 5 hours, maybe 6 hours max. And then I heard Dr. Matthew Walker and Joe Rogan's podcast. This is maybe 7 or 8 years ago at this stage, and it completely changed everything for me. Basically, Matthew Walker, he states that a reduction in sleep can, first of all, it can cause an increase in fat gain and a reduction in muscle retention. So for example, there's a study done where 2 groups of people having this exact same number of calories, but one group got 8.5 hours sleep, the other got 5.5 hours sleep. The group that slept for 5.5 hours or less, they both lost weight, but 70% of the weight they lost came from lean muscle mass and not body fat. And when I heard that, I was like, wait, so I'm training hard, I'm eating well, but I actually might be losing more of my muscle, my hard-earned muscle that I'm putting the reps in the gym rather than my stored fat. So that's when I really started prioritizing sleeping more and getting at least 7 hours of sleep. Now, if you're watching this, you're stuck with your sleep, what I recommend is follow the 10-3-2-1 sleep rule, which one of our coaches, when I was playing football, told me. That was 10 hours before bed, cut caffeine, 3 hours before bed, stop eating, 2 hours before bed, stop drinking, and 1 hour before bed, stop working, and try to also dim the lights and get off your phone. This leads me on nicely to number 8, and that is nutrition really just comes down to calories, food quality, and protein. Okay, so I used to watch influencers online. I remember one guy in particular, okay, he was only claiming that he's having 1 meal a day, but for his meal a day, he was having like 3,000 calories in one sitting, and it was predominantly like cereal and all of these hyper-processed foods. And I just got so overwhelmed. I'm like, how is this guy so shredded? He's got abs, but he's eating all this junk food. But then I just realized that, look, sometimes if you see some of this stuff online, if it's too good to be true, it probably is. And a lot of these influencers, they might claim to be, eating this certain diet, but what they don't tell you is they're probably also enhanced, they're taking steroids too. And then I realized, look, success leaves clues. How were your grandparents eating 100 years ago, 200 years ago? They were following basically the principles of our metabolic priming diet we implement with our clients today. First one is eat mostly single ingredient whole foods. Okay, if you go to the supermarket, you don't need to check what are the ingredients in an apple. It's just an apple. It's one ingredient. Okay, apple juice, on the other hand, it might contain elements of an apple, but also tons of added ingredient. Number 2, have a plant and a protein every single meal. Okay, protein preserves muscle mass. Protein is anabolic, meaning that if you don't even lift weights but you eat protein, you can build a minor amount of muscle. And then fiber, that's going to come from fruits and veggies. Who does not feel better when you have more fruits and veggies? I know for me, when my diet is sometimes off and I have maybe a meal out, or maybe I'm home at Christmas, okay, sometimes I just crave like having a big bowl of salmon with some vegetables, and you just feel so good when you're in that routine again. And then number 3 is eat the right amount of calories for you and for your individual goals. If you want to gain weight, because I used to be skinny fat, you need to be in a calorie surplus of about 300. If you want to lose weight, about a pound a week, focus on being in a calorie deficit of about 500 calories per day. And speaking of calories, consuming the right amount will help you with number 9 with your training. But one training mistake that I made was I used to warm up to train, not train to warm up. So anytime I would have got injured is because I used to go to the gym, I used to do one of these and, flap my arms and move my shoulders up and down, and that'll make me warm up for the bench press. And then it got to a point where sometimes I was injuring myself. I was warming up too quickly, I was rushing it because I wanted to get into my top set. But even if you're a time constrained, busy working professional watching this, do not skip your warm up. I would rather you do a 10-minute warm up, okay, and not be able to finish the last 10 minutes of your workout than the other way around and reduce or increase your risk of injury. So warm up to train, don't train to warm up. And speaking of training, number 10, just focus, Adrian, on getting stronger at the compound lifts. That's the advice that I give myself if I go back 12 years ago. When I started out, I used to just do a load of isolation exercise. I used to go to the gym with some of my mates. We used to do bicep curls, tricep pushdowns, and lots of core work, okay? Look, they're fine. There certainly is a time and a place for them. But if you're starting out, okay, or if you're stuck in time, just focus on getting stronger at the compound lifts. I promise you, you will build muscle, you will look better, you will burn body fat, and you'll just be much, much stronger. So the compound lifts are things like your bench press, your squat, your deadlift, your chin-ups, okay, your rear foot elevated split squats, all of these movements that train more than one muscle group per session, okay? And if you just get stronger at the compound lifts, I promise you, the looks of the aesthetics will follow rather than just focus on isolation. Ideally, you blend both so you've got nice symmetry, but if you're just starting out, focus on just prioritizing the compound lifts, and I promise you, you look, feel, and perform much, much better. This brings me on to my second last point, and that is focus on the gain rather than the gap. So when I started out, I used to always compare myself to other people. So I used to be quite happy with how I looked in the mirror. Then you go on social media and you see some guy who's absolutely shredded. I'm like, God, I want to look like that. I want to look like Cristiano Ronaldo. How much further do I have to go? But if you're always comparing your chapter 1 or your chapter 5 to somebody else's chapter 10 or 15, you're always going to be in the gap rather than being in the gain. Whereas being in the gain is focused on how far you've come. Okay, so you don't look as shredded as Cristiano Ronaldo, that's fair enough. But if you compare your pictures now or your progress now to where you were 2, 3, 5, 10 years ago, 12 years ago, you're in a much, much better place. And when you focus on your own individual journey, because everyone here is on their own individual journey, okay, that will give you confidence that you're going in the right direction if you stay consistent. And then finally, number 12, and that is do not give in to peer pressure and stand by your morals or your values. So I used to get to a point where I was almost ashamed that, okay, if I was eating out with my mates, if I got like something like the healthier option on the menu, I almost didn't want people to see what I ordered. If I was going to a game, I would sometimes bring, would say, high protein foods with me, and I'd nearly like be eating it sneakily on a bus or amongst my mates because I didn't want them to see me eat it. Or if I didn't want to go out, sometimes just because, look, I want to focus on my health, I want to prioritize getting leaner and being stronger. I nearly didn't want to say that as a reason why. But now it's just like, look, I am who I am, you are who you are, and just be yourself. Be yourself, stand by your morals, stand by your values. For me, I value my health, I value my fitness, I value my longevity. I don't like to drink alcohol anymore because I would much rather, okay, be up early in the morning, get out for my walk, get my workout in, than be out late at night and just be in a complete mess the following day. But again, that's me, that's my individual values. And just at the start, I used to always be too concerned with what other people thought of me. Now it's like, look, I am who I am, I've got my own values, as does everyone. And once you stand by your values, okay, nobody can take anything from you. So I would just say, stop concerned about what other people think of you and just you do you and you be yourself. Okay, so there are the 12 lessons I know now that I wish I knew when I started out. But above all else, if you're watching this video, don't get overwhelmed, okay? Just focus on the fundamentals of eating mostly whole foods, having lots of protein, lifting weights, and staying consistent. I promise you, if you do all those three things, don't worry about carnivore, keto, what the best diet or workout plan is to lose body fat or build muscle. Just stay consistent with those, and I promise you, you will not recognize the progress you will make 1 year on from now.